Hey guys, and welcome back. Today we'll be doing a power yoga flow. So to begin, we'll start off on all fours on a tabletop position, hands below shoulders, knees below hips. You want to go through a variation of cat cow. So tucking your toes and hovering your knees off the mat. You can inhale, dipping your belly as you push your hips back. And as you exhale, you're going to lean your body forward, just rocking back and forth, making sure to keep your knees off the mat as we just move our body with our breath, getting our spines and our bodies nice and warm. Then, placing our knees back on the mat, you can untuck your toes and go through some hip rotations. So, lifting your right leg up, you're just going to rotate it in a clockwise direction, going in nice circular motions before changing over to the other. And finally, placing your foot next to your hand, you're going to come into a nice lizard stretch, either keeping your knee on the mat for passive lizard, or you can bring it up, as in then you try and bring your elbows down to the mat for a nice lizard stretch to really stretch out the hips. And coming back onto your hands, going to keep your left hand down on the mat, raising your right as high as you can for a nice twisted lizard. Hands back down to the mat, coming back into a plank before quickly coming down onto all fours as we move on to the other side. Painting some nice big exaggerated circles with your knee in the one direction before changing over and moving in the other. Finally, placing your hand back down, coming into the passive lizard or an active, and if you're up for it, bring your elbows down to the mat for a nice lizard stretch. Coming back onto your hands and lifting your opposite hand up, reaching as high as you can to the sky. Bring your hands back down, kicking back into a plank, pushing your body slightly forward before lifting your hips and pushing up into your first downward facing dog. Focusing on keeping a nice straight back and with your knees slightly bent. Starting with our flow, we're going to lift our left leg up as high as we can before placing it between our hands, lifting our whole bodies up for a high crescent lunge. Holding the pose as we take a nice deep breath, really engaging our core, pushing our hips as far forward as we can, before bringing our hands down to the mat, coming to a plank. And you can gently lower your knees down before bringing your whole upper body down to the mat. Exhaling as we push upward, cobra, and finally tucking our toes as we exhale for our downward facing dog. Moving on to the other side, lifting our right leg up as high as we can, placing between our knees, and lifting up for once more for a high crescent lunge. Exhaling as we bring our hands down to the mat. Inhale for a plank. Exhale, bringing our whole bodies down. Inhaling for our back bend of choice, whether it's down dog, up dog, or cobra, before finally exhaling into downward facing dog. Moving on, left leg kicking up, placing a foot between the hands, rising up into high crescent lunge, before opening up into warrior two, with your right hand out in front of you, left hand behind. Making sure your hands are in a nice line together, holding for a breath, for bringing your hands back down, coming into a plank, and from there doing your vinyasa of choice. Moving on, right leg going up, foot between the hands, rising up for high crescent lunge, before opening up into our warrior two. Bring our hands back down to the mat, going for a plank. Bring exhaling as we go down. Inhale for our back bend of choice. For exhaling for our downward facing dog. Moving on, you know where to go from here. Three-legged dog to high crescent lunge. Open up into warrior two. Then placing our right hand on our knee, we're going to sweep our left hand up and bring it over our heads for an extended side angle. And if you're feeling spicy, you can maybe bring your your hand on your knee and bring it in line with your top hand as if you're holding a giant beach ball. Bringing your hands back down to the mat, holding for a plank before lowering, pushing up, really focusing on your breath as we meet me back in downward facing dog. Moving on to the other side, placing foot between the hands, rising up for high crescent lunge, warrior two, and once more into our extended side angle, and maybe even extend our right hand to be in line with our left. Really focusing on your breath, engaging your core and all your muscles in your abdomen and your legs. For exhaling, placing your hands down to the mat, and then gently exhale as we bring our bodies down. Inhale to bend, and exhale to push back. Last round on this side, left leg going up, meeting me in a high crescent lunge. Open up into a warrior two. Now this time we're going to straighten our front leg, have our palms face forward, and we're going to bend our bodies forward, keeping our arms in line for a triangle pose, Trikonasana. Making sure our bottom hand is right by our ankle. We hold the pose before bringing our hands back down, kicking back into a plank, and going through our last vinyasa flow for this side. Then, coming on to our last time, taking up into a high crescent lunge, open up into warrior two, straightening out our front leg, flipping our palms towards the side, and just bringing our whole upper bodies and front hand down to the mat. Taking some nice deep breaths, feeling the stretch in your sides. For exhaling, bringing your hands back down and going through our last vinyasa. Exhale to lower, inhale to lift and bend, and finally exhale to push back. Great stuff. Now you can walk your hands slowly towards the front of your mat and just let your whole body hang forward into a nice forward fold. Maybe grab your elbows for a ragdoll and just sway your body from side to side. Really letting gravity just take over and just enjoying having your heart above your head. Inhale, we're going to go through a halfway lift before exhaling down forward fold. And then as we inhale, we're slowly going to stand up straight. Uttanasana mountain pose with our palms facing forward in front of us. Taking a deep breath in before bringing our hands to Anjali Mudra, heart center. We're going to go into a tree pose. So from there, you can either bring your left foot by your ankle or below your knee. Or if you have the balance, bring it up all the way up to your thigh, focusing on a spot in front of you and just really gaining your and practicing your balance. Gently releasing your leg as we move on to the other side. With your right leg either on your ankle, below your knee, or letting your right foot all the way up on your thigh. Bringing feet back down. And now we're just going to slowly lower our hips, bending our knees as we come into a yogi squat malasana. If you need some extra support, you can use a block underneath just to give you some more elevation. And then you can just place your elbows onto your knees just to get a nice deep stretch in your hips. Then coming back down onto your bums. You can bring your feet close together. You can bring it as close to your body as you can. If not, you can just let it slide out slightly in front of you. And we're going to go through a butterfly fold, taking a deep breath in. And as we exhale, we're going to fold forward as far as we can. And then just relax into the fold. Gently coming back up straight. And get into a nice seated position on your knees, or you can stay on your with your legs crossed. I'm going to go through some spinal twists, twisting from left to right, holding each side for a second before moving back to the other, and just repeating, matching your movement with your breath. Inhale to twist the one way before exhaling to twist the other. Then meeting me back into center, we're going to go through some shoulder rolls, rolling our shoulders back, bringing our shoulders as close to our ears as possible as they come up, and then pushing them as far away as we can. Then changing directions, rolling our shoulders forward, really trying to exaggerate the movement, get as much movement and activation as possible. And finally, we can move on to our backs as we move on to the last section of our practice. Bringing our knees towards our chest, hugging them in, giving a nice little squeeze as we rock from side to side. Get a nice spinal massage going. Or finally laying our left hand out to the side and rolling our legs down to your right for a nice belly twist. Bring your legs back to center as we move on to the other side, letting your legs swing over to your left as you let your right arm lay down. Maybe even twisting your head towards your right. Back to center, moving on to the last pose. We're going to go through a bridge. So bringing your ankles as close to your hips as possible. You're going to slowly lift your hips up before lifting your spine, keeping your chin tucked into your chest. And maybe even if it's in your practice, you can try and lift your heels to try and get a nice deep stretch in your back. Making sure to keep looking forward and not twist your neck. As you finally and gently bring your hips back down and just lay your feet out in front of you as we prepare for our Shavasana, feeling every muscle in our body, taking notice of how different it feels from the beginning and how it feels right now. We just take some nice deep breaths and give ourselves a mental tap on the back of making time for ourselves as we just relax. Then just going to slowly start introducing some movement back into our bodies, wiggling our fingers and our toes, lifting our hands above our head and stretching like we're just waking up in the morning, taking some nice deep breaths. We gently move up into a seated position, keeping our eyes closed or keeping a gentle gaze. You come to a cross-legged seated position, or you can sit on your shins with your hands on your knees or on your lap. We just take a moment, keeping our eyes closed, taking a nice deep breath, or finally lifting our hands up above our head and bringing them down to our heart center as we bow and close our practice. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you found some benefits and got a nice little sweat going. And I'll see you guys again next time on the yoga mat.